Hey, everybody. How are you today? I am delighted to welcome you back to Impossible Live. Thanks for popping in live, popping in replays, popping in for really amazing conversations in between our lives. And I am delighted to welcome back one of our favorite guests, and a woman who helps me redefine what the word collaboration means. So delighted today to welcome back the amazing and stellar LaChelle Adkins, America's Supermom, of Keeping It Real with. And LaChelle, I'm going to let you introduce, because boy, you got amazing, wonderful companies. You know, they roll out of my tongue. They roll out of paper. But honey, you got so many goodies going on. Let me let you show them how it's done. And please introduce yourself. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Melanie. It's always a joy to have conversations with you. So, yes, as you mentioned, I am known as America's Supermom. My husband and I have 15 children, and 10 of them still live at home. And my platform is mental wellness. So, just as you said, I do a number of things on a number of platforms because I am very passionate about mental wellness. Just based on my own journey that I went through with 13 years of depression and 3 hospitalizations. So now I'm passionate about sharing my story so that I can help other women and moms to learn how to navigate through all the things that we feel are pressing and priorities, but being able to do that with help and not the expense of our own health. So, as you many people know, this month is National Suicide Awareness Month. And for some people, when it comes to anxiety, stress, overwhelm, that is the only alternative that they believe is possible. So I think we have a lot of work to do, not just locally in our communities, but on a global scale, to really be mindful of helping people navigate with the right set of tools so that they can be the best version of themselves, but also have people that they can trust and learn to have create safe spaces where they can talk about some of the real issues that they are really dealing with. I think we all have obstacles, as we've seen with the global pandemic of 2020. And it's important to remember that that probably won't be the last global experience. There's always going to be something. And if you're in a household like mine, every day there can be something that you're not quite prepared for, but having the tools to navigate through them is what is important. So I am a podcaster, I'm a TV producer, I'm an author, a speaker. I've recently co-founded a club on Clubhouse. It's been almost 2 years now, called the Elephant Strategy Club. So again, any place that I can use my voice to share my story, that's where I'm at. So thank you again for having me today, Melanie.
Always my wonderful pleasure to hang out with you. And welcome, Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining us and for popping in. And let us know as you're joining us what great introductions are for you, what doors may be helpful to for a little bit of assistance or inspiration to help you open them. And I keep saying for LaChelle, and I'll say it again, LaChelle really wants to meet Oprah and Jimmy Fallon. And I was joking the last couple of times we've been talking, but no more joke. I think the way we need to get LaChelle an introduction to Jimmy Kimmel, because once he meets amazing LaChelle, Jimmy Kimmel will help us get it happening. So anybody has any connections or seeds out there, they are greatly appreciated.
Oh, definitely. And it's funny you would mention Jimmy Fallon because his birthday is September the 19th. I just found that out when I go through the nationaltoday.com where they tell you the different holidays. It could be like Corn Dog Day, Raisin Bran Day, all these different things. Well, his birthday is September the 19th. So I need to send him a card this year.
Hey, it would work. It would work. Let him look up hashtag America's Supermom. But it really is such a great reminder. And as LaChelle and I were talking to kind of prepare, for today's topic. And boy, I appreciate your patience because boy, I was deep in a vacation mode. Woo, deep, 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 deep. So thanks for your patience, kind of nudging out of that. But I think
Mhm,
we're in a world where we're always talking about ways to build relationships
mhm,
and ways that we can kind of come together. Like I love, as you were mentioning, the Elephant Strategy Club is
mhm,
something you co-founded,
mhm,
and I think sometimes we get confused or others can get confused in the conversations about the ownership. This is
mm,
mine, or these are my goals. And I think one of the interesting starting points with collaboration is just to start from a point of what might be some shared goals.
mhm,
We've got our individual goals, we got our team goals, you got your business goals, you got your life goals. It all mixes up, but I think that concept of a shared goal, or kind of a shared value, kind of a shared space to kind of build on so that you're growing in the right direction.
mhm. I totally agree with that, and, I love how you bring up the ownership, because a lot of times people say, let's make this win-win. But people have full autonomy for their particular goals. And when it comes to the collaboration, a lot of times there's a disconnect with the corporate goal. So as we just use the Elephant Strategy Club on Clubhouse, for example. So it started out where the co-founder reached out to me to just host a room. And so it was at the very beginning when I got on Clubhouse, and I was crazy. This was like a week into being on Clubhouse. I was on there falling asleep in rooms. I mean, just crazy about Clubhouse. And I was at that point where it was a weekend. I said, I just can't go on like this. I have to have some kind of strategy. So that's when she reached out to me, and I was like, well, wanted to have a club. So I thought you had to have a room for 21 consecutive days before you were eligible to have a club. And so that's how we started our first room, which was ended up being the club, How to Eat an Elephant in 21 Days. Now, she was just there to support me. And, she was thinking 21 days, she had her own story, which we found out later on, but she said yes. So we went on to have this room for 21 days, which came and went because we ended up doing that room or that club for over a year, Monday through Friday, every day. And so, just having this idea that the concept kind of evolved. We never really had high expectations. We were just enjoying the company of the people that came in the room, getting to know them, having great conversations. And so the premise of our club was to talk about the elephants in the room, the hard topics, but we had it change every day so people just wouldn't have this fear of doing new things or facing some of their fears. The fact that it changed every day helped you to just pour everything into a day and then let that day go and then come back fresh with a new perspective, but not getting stuck in certain things, but you continue to evolve every day. So when we talk about ownership, I think it's important to realize that when you're collaborating, it is a co ownership. It doesn't matter what your end outcome is. If you're going to be soliciting the help of anybody, that particular project or goal or destination is not just yours. It's everybody that you ask to collaborate. And it's from that point being able to kind of let your hair down and really focus on you showing up as your best version of yourself and knowing what that is. So if you're not into technology, but you've got this project that involves that, being able to really admit the things that you're good at and then letting go of the things that you're not in the spirit of the collaboration and then attracting the people that are gifted in the areas that you're not.
I think that's great, and I think it really is a reminder in the process of co-ownership. It's like bringing more elements to a shared table,
Hmm.
and being able to invite others in to have seats around the table that are beneficial to the collaboration. And I think that's what happens sometimes. I think in terms of goals or pedal to the metal, so to speak, it's easy to get so laser focused that others forget about making more seats at the table to
Hmm.
help fill in so that you're kind of hitting those goals. I think also one of the challenges is who to select, or that process of someone inviting you in to collaborate. Some of us, our instincts may help us select partners that are always a great fit,
Hmm.
in many cases, in many collaborations. And I'm really appreciative to have learned the word, this is not a good fit for me right now,
Hmm.
or this is not working right now. And that those things, that really successful collaborations, just like strong or lasting relationships, they've got a place for the communication to happen.
Hmm.
Kind of, I think, a timeline in there, because in the collaboration, each one of us has to do something at a certain time, whether it's showing up, whether it's preparing for the tech, whether it's putting in resources, for VIP swag or something,
Hmm.
or sharing in the promo, but kind of sharing in the task. And I think that's the part some people are hoping that a collaborator kind of carries them. And I love your reminder that it's not just ownership, it really is co ownership.
Hmm. Because I think, when we begin projects, it's just like a lot of people compare having whatever they do to laboring a baby. This is my baby, birthing it, whatever they want to say. And we forget that collaborating is really understanding that it's not just yours. If it wasn't for the other people that were part of that project, it wouldn't happen. And I guess the best analogy I would have is for a live event. Yes, you have the speakers, you have people, the venue, you've got the decorations, you've got swag, or, all these different things that go into the experience. See, because when we are able to impact the lives of other people, it's an experience, it's an opportunity to inspire them. And all of those parts are very important, from the invitation that you send to the speakers that are on the stage to the thank you cards and how you decide to follow up. It's all a part of that experience. And so the more that you're able to think bigger with that. So if you say, okay, I want to have a live event, we're going to be talking about the importance of suicide prevention. So then you begin to think, well, who could speak on this topic? And who do we want to invite? And so as you begin to start getting clarity about those things, you'll understand that it gets to be more of a bigger project than what you probably even consider. And then you're thinking, well, we need to leave them something. You know what, suicide prevention, let's help them be ambassadors for the movement. So maybe we need to give them cards that have suicide prevention on there. Maybe we need to give them a few key questions to ask. So then you decide, well, we're going to have a book. Well, then how are we going to fund this book? Well, we can get people who want to be sponsors, and then we'll add them in the book. So you see what I'm saying? It can end up growing as you begin to brainstorm through really incorporating the ideas of everybody who's involved in the project.
That's fantastic. I think we start with simple ideas and maybe get attached to them. I remember in the process of working on my first multi-day retreat, uh, attended a presentation by a thought leader that I had been following for years, and I saw him live, and boy, it just took me someplace. So something I'd been working on with a collaborator for about 17 months,
Mhm.
sitting with this one person and hearing their words, it took me someplace else. Like, I remember driving a long distance, and I couldn't stay for the full program, but watching a keynote, like an opening speech that just like lit me up. When I got home, that pen started going. I ended up writing like a 12-page document
Mm.
after hearing the ideas and kind of integrating them in. When I went back to share them, the collaboration was becoming something else. So I think
Mhm.
sometimes that growth part, got to mention it and remind ourselves in a collaboration. It's like when we're really excited and we want to share something, we need to make sure that others at the table or in the audience are kind of ready to receive them. Maybe there's a wish list section,
Mhm.
or there's a board. There's our must haves, there's our like to haves, that would be our love to haves, and maybe there's our rainy days, we need to save this for later. Or
So true. And I love that because, as you do brainstorm, this is the part where you recognize that you don't have to have ownership. So some people brainstorm and they're like, we just got to do that. That was just a phenomenal idea, something that they might have suggested. But when you're dealing with the collaboration, you have to be able to understand the energy of the people that are involved. So if you're throwing out an idea and it doesn't keep the momentum going, people are like, I don't know. There's sometimes where you can have it where people are learning to trust and learning to think bigger. So, for example, I had an event Christmas in July, and so that's why I got these holiday decorations behind me, because I'm still doing this Christmas theme all the way through the end of the year. But we had this event. I had some people that were collaborating, and one of the things that we wanted to offer was special gift opportunities for the people who were attendees. To be able to connect with each of the people that were collaborating. So it was like special pricing for some marketing or different products that they have related to the holidays. And so we were having like a meeting with all the collaborators, and one of the women said, "Hey, I can go ahead and create a landing page for this, and we can put everybody's thing on there." And so one of the people who were thinking, "Well, you know what? That just sounds like a lot of trouble. I really don't think we need to do all that." But there was a way that I was able to distinguish the ability from the person who made the suggestion. It just seemed like it wasn't any work to them. It was like a no-brainer, just something that they thought was really easy to contribute. So I just had to make the decision. I was like, you know what? We're just going to let her do it. But I knew that the anticipation from the other person was because they didn't know how to do it. So for them, that suggestion sounded overwhelming. They didn't know anything about it. And they ended up being like me, not into technology. So we went ahead and went with it, and everything worked out fine. And that person was able to see that it's okay to delegate and trust people to be in their zone of genius, because it's going to end up, you're going to recognize that they're just as invested in this being successful as you are, because that's the true nature of a collaboration, where we go back to everybody has ownership with that.
I love it too, because you're really reminding it's not about a competition. It's not about
Mhm.
whose idea it was. It's not about who brings the ingredients for the secret sauce.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of getting the right hands, the right utensils, the right eyes to really
Mhm.
build the right mix. But I think sometimes too, in those suggestions, it's easy to come up with a brainstorming or an idea that really makes others occasionally feel uncomfortable. And that
Mhm.
having a safe place to kind of explore that is part of the collaborations that work. We learn something, we'll reach a little bit higher, we'll go a little bit farther. And maybe it's a matter of changing or improving a process that we already had imagined, or a system. I think the thing that I loved was, in working on the retreat, I was working with somebody who's highly systematized. They've got a process. It's like, here's the cake, here's how many slices you're slicing in it, here's the structure, here's the cake server, here's the utensils. And
Mhm.
I had to remember, for something that I was dreaming about, listening to a thought leader, it helped me realize I had more dreams that
Mm,
maybe they're individual dreams. They're not shared goals. They're not shared dreams. And I learned in that process, I might have had a better way to share my ideas on how to how to change part of the process of how we were doing things.
mhm. I love that because I think, there are times that we do have our individuality. And I think that's important to kind of highlight. But just like you said, where someone has a system, they know this, they know that. I was listening to Jim Rohn a couple days ago, and he was saying how um, there's the logic and then there's the emotion. The logic is the system, how many pieces of cake and all that. But when you're making an impact and inspiring other people, you need the emotion as well. So understanding the dynamics of that, even just something as simple as, understanding that your part that you play, whether it is really connecting with that audience and getting that emotion, but knowing that you're going to hand off something to somebody else. So it's like you're going to show up, you're going to do you, you're going to contribute your part, but then it's a handoff, it's a relay. All of these things are going to get us to the finish line. And I think a lot of people invest too much in trying to be all parts, right? So you get to the system and it's like, you want to control that instead of letting go and allowing that person to shine the way that they do, because not everybody is systematic. I mean, I look at my kids, and some of them, they come home, they put their computers on the charger, they get their homework and organized. Some of them, it's like, shoes in the middle of the floor, backpack in the bathroom. I mean, craziness. So we have to really be able to understand that some people have that gift, and that gift is good for us to learn from, but we don't have to try to control it.
I think that's one of the great parts of learning, as if you're wearing a creative hat at the table,
Mhm.
that occasionally there's those times to wear the linear hat, the quiet hat, to be the deep thinker, to really lean in and listen to somebody else's idea. And like you said, put some emotion behind it. Cause I think that's what happens. We kind of get caught in how we're processing them.
Mhm.
And in relationships, they really change. Somebody says something, sooner or later, someone's going to have an idea that not everybody's in love with.
Mhm.
It may be a suggestion that needs some work, some fine tuning. It needs some more hands. It needs more time,
Mhm.
and sometimes there are amazing ideas that are brought up. Those are great ideas for collaborations for the next collaboration, not necessarily for the first time, but for the
Mhm.
second or the third or later, or it belongs in another collaboration.
Mhm.
And that's the part that I love about the new ideas. I think one of the things I'd
Mhm.
love to talk to you about also, and I know we both enjoy working with people in like direct sales and direct networks.
Mhm.
You have sales leaders
Mhm.
that are teachers, are people who bring different ingredients to the table. And
Mhm.
thanks, Andrea. Welcome. And it's about getting the right ingredients together. But
Mhm.
I think it also happens in teams where teams are attempting to collaborate, and you got a team leader who occasionally, sometimes really great leaders take a back seat to let somebody else on the team kind of, hey,
Mhm.
to take some time to like let them raise their hands. It's just like a really good ingredient. I think that team member's voice, a way to really treasure other voices in the
Mhm.
collaboration.
Mhm. Yeah,
And it can be challenging when you have different roles.
so true. And I think, we're back again to I love that you called the name of this talk collaboration over competition, because it is really just that. When we have the situation of where someone is feeling like they're the chief and the one that's in charge, we really put a lot of restraint on the growth of that collaboration. It's just like if you have a dinner party and you're getting ready. You have some guests that come early before the party. One of the ways to really help them feel comfortable is to allow them to help. You know, they'll ask, "Is there anything that I could help you with?" They begin to feel like they are part of that particular party, as the host. They feel comfortable with you. They're able to establish trust that, you are giving them a place to be able to, I don't know, serve something, get the drinks together. They feel like they are part of it. And so that is one of the things that I think a lot of people miss with collaborations, is that they want to control or have a certain select people that do this, and they don't open it up to allow people to feel like they are a part of the project. Because at the end of the day, the more you feel connected to it, the more you're going to invest into it. And nobody even has to tell you anything. We've had, going back to the Elephant Strategy Club, I mean, that club went over a year because we were able to invite people in to have some ownership, to have some contribution, that was not where we're just trying to control everything. We even solicited them to come and speak, to have guest speakers, and just staying in alignment with the overall objective of what we want to accomplish in the room. And so when I think you're able to have that, people invest on their own. It's just a matter of you creating a safe space for them to do so.
But I think the beauty of that too is that you really, in many of your collaborations, you have the word community. You know,
Hmm.
it's a real opportunity for people to come together and kind of
Hmm.
participate. And I think sometimes some collaborations don't always feel like that. They started
Hmm.
someplace, they're going someplace else. Or in any conversation about collaborations, I think it's really good to add that that miscellaneous
Hmm.
topic. We hit everything on the agenda. Is there something we didn't cover? Is there something that you would change? Is there something that we discussed that seems to be ironclad, already ironed out? And sometimes that can frustrate the system people because we already addressed this. We already did this. We already created this. I thought this was set.
Hmm.
But I think
So
that,
true.
yeah, that, and I love that also about Elephant Strategy Club. And we were talking about this Friday. There's an opportunity to come and show up as you are,
Hmm.
but there's an opportunity also to close out with a key takeaway. And I don't think many collaborations have that.
Hmm.
What's something today that kind of changed, that kind of became an aha, something you learned, something you will now explore more, or
Hmm.
maybe somebody's skills or strengths is of interest, and you now know that's a person I'd love to reach out from. Hey, I'd
Hmm.
love to learn to explore collaboration with you. I think you helped me really fall in love with the words in the process of an introduction of exploring synergy.
Hmm.
Because when we show up for collaboration and we kind of keep that explore kind of an open eye there as to what can be, that it really helps it grow into something magical, you
Hmm.
know.
I love that because, the takeaways for me, they were really more for me because, when I started it, I was thinking, man, all these different things. I'm a note taker. So I'm over here while we're on this, I'm taking notes. And the takeaways were for me to get some more insight from people and understand, what are some things that we need to do in the future, what resonated with people, what didn't. And so that's really where the takeaways started. It was for me to say, out of all this conversation, what did people get out of this? Because I had my own notes of what I would want to talk about, but I wanted to hear from everybody else. And one of the things that the takeaways ended up doing for me was to really keep me humble. So even though, like, a lot of times, if we didn't have a guest speaker, it would be either myself or Summer that would lead a conversation. And you have your own notes of what you're going to take away with the talk that you're doing. A lot of times we do acronyms so that we can be focused on the topic and not really get real, off topic, but, remain with the semi logic and emotion, because we never knew how some of these topics would trigger other people in the room. You could be thinking that you're talking about saying no to opportunities, and you never know what someone may share. Someone may talk about an experience that really transformed their lives, and it's something totally different. So, having those notes and an agenda over what we want to talk about gave us the space to really be able to nurture, to hold space for people, because we were clear on what our objective was and how to tie everything together at the end. But so the takeaways kept me humble, because you're thinking, oh, these are the topics that I'm going to talk about. You're thinking the takeaway is about something you shared, and then you'll find that everybody who came to join that conversation said something that resonated for one person that you didn't even anticipate. It just ended up to where people began to get value, not just from the person who had the prepared talk, but from the people who just happen to join the conversation. So now, it has totally transformed the room on a regular, because I'm just excited to have everybody that I can. If you're in the room and you're in the listening lounge, I'm like, hey, come on up. That's one of the things I invite everybody. And I know somebody who may not have ever been in our room, they're thinking, how is she inviting me up? Because it's amazing the takeaways you'll find. You never even know what ministers to different people. That's just how I feel about it.
I loved your reminder in there to have an invitation,
Mm-hmm.
because it does let people know, whether it's a red carpet, whether it's a welcome sign, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
an ambassador. You really are helping others really experience tremendous growth and transformations. I think sometimes in collaborations, and I thought about, I was talking the other day about a group that we've been running maybe about 15 and a half years now.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the pandemic, we took a break in between live meetings. And someone we would fundraise for, and we raised thousands and thousands of dollars for their not for profit. And on their end, they might have felt it was effortless. It was a matter of just show up and collect the check or
Mm-hmm.
collect the supplies. And the organization was going through some stuff. So we kind of paused our, not our support, but we needed to really kind of reestablish touch. And I was surprised last week. The head of the organization is reaching out. She's coming to our virtual meeting tomorrow. Now,
Mm-hmm.
we haven't seen her at a live meeting. It's always an employee, it's always an ambassador, but we
Mm-hmm.
haven't seen her at a live meeting probably about 6, maybe 7 years.
Wow.
So I was excited because I said, tomorrow I know will be a little bit different,
Mm-hmm.
because she's got a need, and we're going to have an opportunity to change the collaboration. So I think being open to that also is part of the discussion. We never met regularly enough to have a really clear communication pattern.
Mm-hmm.
But last year they were going through some stuff, so we did some fundraising for another organization that I happen to be on the board of. But I thought it was really cool, because tomorrow we'll have a chance to reconnect and maybe redefine what collaboration looks like for both of us going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in that exploration part, you almost also, sometimes there's a boundary. There's a limit to how
Mm-hmm.
many collaborators can be around the table. There's a point at which, our ideas, just like, in planning my retreat, we had enough ideas. We were refining the system, but
Mm-hmm.
I learned something really important. Sometimes you'll see something and you're like, I think we're missing something, and it's an opportunity in that collaboration to revisit it, or maybe redefine it so it's clear, so others really know that all are welcome around the table.
Mm-hmm. So
And
true.
It'll be interesting tomorrow because when we joined, this is one of those long-term county residents. My
Mhm.
co-founder and I are girls from the city. We weren't born here. She's got, different needs. And I think it'll be a really good chance to kind of redefine how we'll work together.
Mhm. I love that. And it just goes back to, again, to really being intentional and clear about what it is that you desire to accomplish. And you mentioned another point about, people that you can collaborate with, and the people at the table. The list can grow to large numbers quickly, depending on what the project is. But just having that clarity about how people communicate, how they talk about the project, their enthusiasm, their energy, all those things are important to be mindful of because, for me, a collaboration is the ability to multiply my
Mm.
presence. It's not about me pulling people along. I tell people all the time, look, I got kids at home. I don't have time to be in a project trying to be responsible for somebody. And really, I'm not trying to be responsible for my kids because we try to make sure that they are self motivated with the things that they do. And by that, I mean, it shouldn't have to be me saying, go clean your room, go do your homework. They should have enough self discipline to be able to do that on their own. And so when we're dealing with people who agree to be part of a greater outcome, we shouldn't have to be motivating them. We shouldn't have to be having them do something that is really outside of their comfort zone. Now, I understand that sometimes, the numbers can grow and you might say, oh, we're going to have a webinar and you think maybe 50 people are going to be there. But as you are planning things and more people are promoting, you end up with 500 people, right? But with that being said, you still would make sure that the person is doing what their zone of genius is and they're just multiplying. So if they are good at speaking, they are speaking and doing their same gift. It's just more people are in the room, right? So if they're good at technology, they can be able to be 100% into their technology, and it just means more people in the room. So I think it's really understanding how to gauge what people are good at, because if you're doing what you're comfortable doing all the time, you'll be able to communicate effectively and get out of the way of a lot of things and really overcome a lot of these obstacles. So if we say, hey, we were going to do a webinar, it was 50 people, but somebody's Zoom can't handle 500, then the problem is, how do we make it so that we can uh, really be there for these 500 people that are showing up? How can we modify this to accomplish the goal? That's a lot easier to work through rather than people trying to build their confidence, go over mindset, and all these other things. Not to say that those aren't important, but if you have a lot of those building blocks taken care of with a better foundation from the very beginning, then you're able to successfully multiply, which is the desired outcome when you are working to collaborate.
Oh, I love that. I think you're also reminding me that as more people sometimes are sitting around the table or expressing an interest to messages or promotions, you'll also have an opportunity to discover other volunteers who are
Hmm.
willing to bring their talents or zone of genius, or even, as we were saying before, become potential sponsors. But
Hmm.
I think it's I think it's important in there, just like, and we're both sitting here taking notes, you know, that there's somebody kind of keeping track of what's happening next,
Hmm.
and that somebody's really keeping track of the people that are needed to kind of bring the collaboration to its next level.
Mhm.
Because otherwise, it feels too much like work. It
Mhm.
it feels too much like homework, whether it's not necessarily devoting enough time to planning,
Mhm.
whether it's, and some of us feel we really can't over prepare.
Mhm.
I'm enjoying and I really love having conversations with you. I realize all the time when we're talking about a topic, we have like a couple of topics we could talk about. And it's the reminder. It's
Mhm.
if you need a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, and a plan D, that a successful collaboration, just like a successful relationship, it's got room for those options.
Mhm.
Or you have a space for those extra tools in your toolkits, to
Mhm.
carry so that, or, hey, something just shifted. There's another team member, there's another potential collaborator, there's another potential
Mhm.
volunteer. Or if it's a funding thing, hey, we need another sponsor who can help us do X. But I
Mhm.
think I love what you mentioned about the clarity piece of it,
Mhm.
because I think we forget that it collaborations can sometimes get fuzzy. Why are we doing this again? Why are we meeting again? It doesn't really feel sometimes in some that the progress is at the rate. So I would suggest also, as people are looking for collaborations, just like relationships, set up a check-in time.
Mhm.
And it could be a long project, something
Mhm.
that you're planning out for like a year or more,
Mhm.
but set in some times to kind of measure, is this working? Is
Mhm.
this working for us? Do we need more help?
Mhm.
Do we need to reevaluate something? And especially from the tech part, I
So true.
I really appreciate, and hey, Catherine of Real Connections Media, I really appreciate her 9 times out of 10 in the back end of a green room. It's a holiday. I'm like, chill, relax, enjoy life. But I think that clarity piece,
Mhm.
we need the energy part of what you said, or otherwise doesn't really
Mhm.
grow.
That is a good point. And I think one of the reasons why, back to Clubhouse and Elephant Strategy Club, that it has been successful, regardless. I mean, there's been hundreds of people. We have over 1,000 members in the club. But one of the reasons why it's successful is that everybody understands the mission of the club. Everybody can get on stage and tell what the Elephant Strategy Club means to them. Now, they may use their own words, but the mission is clear across the board. So that's one of the things I thank Clubhouse for, because there's this process of resetting the room. And, you reset the room because it's like public radio or something where you can just pop in midstream when people are talking and you want to get up to speed on what the conversation is. So we do resets of the room. And so that process of resetting the room, telling what the mission is of the conversation or the mission of the club, has been very beneficial to really be clear on what our purpose is. So anybody who, after they left the room that day, they will be clear and know exactly what Elephant Strategy Club is all about, without have been interacting with us over a year ago. They are clear from being in the room exactly what the mission is. And I think having a unique mission with collaboration is very important. There's a lot of things that go on in the background. I was on the room this morning. So my kids are at home. We're having a cookout. My husband is doing the barbecue and I'm doing the sides. And I got up and I was like, I'm going to do this early so I can get it over with. And so I'm cooking and doing all these other things. But when I'm clear about why I'm in the room, what's the mission of this room? Why are we even having it? Yeah, it's a holiday. I have stuff going on, but there's an ability to be present and really open and honest about that. So there were a couple times where I made remarks, hey guys, I'm gonna pass the mic over to somebody else because I am doing multitasking. And I believe that sometimes when we think we can multitask, that we can be in two places at the same time, but it's impossible. It's important to be present where your feet are. And so when you learn to really be clear about your mission, you can invest that time into that mission and let everything else go behind the scenes while you're present. And so I think that's another thing that has helped us to be successful, is that everyone knows the mission everybody shows up. If they feel like they can't talk, then they speak in the chat. They stay in the audience. They tell us that they're in listening mode, because there is the energy that's needed and the momentum from everybody showing up ready to be invested into whatever it is that we're creating, whether it's a conversation, a project, or a destination, or whatever that looks like.
I think that's fantastic. It always reminds you that in a great collaboration, there's a welcome, there's an invitation for others to join you, there's
Mhm.
an opportunity for them to participate, there's spaces and places for them to connect. And those are clear, the ways, and whether it's direct participation or in a chat or in a note, and that when people are distracted, there's the opportunity to reach out and find some private support, which I think is really critical. Life's going to happen. Something's going to
Mhm.
pop in to a collaboration, into an opportunity, into a relationship. It's whether we can say, "Hey, here's where I'm at today." Somebody I want to collaborate with reached out to me last week, and I was in deep, deep vacation zone mode. And I realized I needed to reach out to them over the weekend. I'll reach out to them today. But I think it's also the reminder to follow up and connect
Mhm.
whenever you can. Just something's changed, something's come up. I had a thought, whether you express it privately in a meeting, publicly in a collaboration, whether it's in a note, and when the timing's not right for you, to really clearly communicate it, so it's an opportunity for somebody else to pop in and share some of their skills to really exceed some of the goals of the collaboration. I adore you and cannot thank you enough for joining me today on another holiday, America's Supermom. Uh,
Love it. Look, I got my little water over here.
oh, hey, your little water, you got your big water, and I'm going back to some bigger waters too. But I think I just want to thank you for the opportunity to
Mhm.
always remind all of us. And somebody I was talking to recently about this. You give us permission to show up as our best selves when
Mhm.
we can. I want to
Mhm.
thank you for that gift, for sharing it, whether it's smiles across the miles or just a thought, letting others know that we're thought of, but allowing us to just show up and collaborate with you in any way
Mhm.
as our best selves, even if it's for 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
Mhm.
So I really want to thank you for that, because a lot of people are like, oh no, it's all or nothing. You're like, come as you are when you can. And just as you said, to kind of really be fully present. I think that's a really great kind of takeaway in
Mhm.
any relationship, in any conversation. But thank you so much. And
Oh,
thank you, beautiful family, as we're celebrating another holiday and Labor Day. And thank you again for popping in to just make our day with smiles across the miles.
oh, thank you so much. And I love what you mentioned about, people showing up when they can, because I think that is so important. When you learn to let go of the outcomes and understand that everybody can bring something to, I always like to use the analogy of a buffet. You've got all the different entrees, all the different sides. You're never going to turn away another plate of food, right? If somebody says, "Oh, I'm just going to drop by with this lemon cake or this peach cobbler," you're not going to say, "Oh, girl, we don't need that." You're going to say the more the merrier. And so I feel like you never know what value that person has to anybody else who is in the room. And it doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes, if it's 5 seconds, because, I have just seen so many things that people share at the last minute that have been like a lifeline to somebody. It really speaks to them. We had this one lady in a room. We were talking about vision boards, and she shared that her TV is her vision board. So she doesn't watch TV anymore, but she actually physically puts things on the TV as a vision board.
Mm,
And I was so taken by that, because what it showed me is if we studied our own vision like we study TV, how much further along will we be? How much time do we dedicate to TV? Watching different things. Now, myself, I'm a little different. I don't watch the news or a lot of TV or anything. I'll do movies with my kids. But if I studied my vision for the time that I was doing some of these other things, I would probably be a powerhouse, and more uh, things I would have done because I would be so clear. I would be able to know what is in line with my vision and what's not in line. And I would be able to make decisions a lot faster. So that person shared that. And I mean, that was a great takeaway for me. And we were getting ready to close the room. So you just never know how people can give you a word. We just have to understand that everything matters. Everything has value, from the smallest to the greatest. So that's my philosophy on whenever anybody can contribute anything, it's all for the greater good.
I love your philosophy and thank you for sharing beautiful, wonderful lessons and the reminder. You're never sure what the gem is and the timing of the gem
Mhm.
and who needs to hear it.
Mhm.
So truly want to thank you for joining us today. You stay safe, stay well, stay inspired, stay in touch, and have a magnificent day. And follow America's Supermom wherever you can, because boy, LaChelle is lighting some trails for all of us in collaborations in our universe, in the metaverse, and in the multiverse. So, thank you so much, beautiful.
Thank you. And bye, everybody. Happy Labor Day.
Yes, happy Labor Day. Stay safe, everybody. Be well.